Setting up a Cisco vBond, Viptela Bond, controller is a crucial step in establishing a secure and efficient software-defined wide area network, SD-WAN, infrastructure using Cisco's SD-WAN solution, such as Viptela or Cisco SD-WAN powered by Viptela. The vBond controller is responsible for orchestrating the initial connectivity between the SD-WAN devices in the overlay network. Here's a general outline of the steps to set up a Cisco vBond controller. Deploy the vBond appliance. Deploy the vBond controller as a virtual machine, VM, or an appliance in your network. The specific deployment steps will vary based on the chosen platform and deployment method. Configure IP address and connectivity. Assign a static IP address to the vBond controller. This IP address should be reachable by all SD-WAN devices that need to connect to the controller. Ensure that there's proper network connectivity between the vBond controller and the SD-WAN devices. Access the vBond controller. Access the vBond controller's management interface using SSH or other methods, depending on your deployment approach. Log in to the vBond controller. Use the default login credentials or any custom credentials you might have set during the initial setup. Generate and install certificates. Secure communication between SD-WAN devices and the vBond controller requires certificates. Generate the necessary certificates for the vBond controller and install them. Configure vBond controller parameters. The vBond controller requires certain configuration parameters to operate effectively. Some of the important parameters to configure include System IP address, Organization name, Domain ID, VPN interface, Organization list, DTLS settings, if used. Configure Bootstrap server. The Bootstrap server's IP address and port need to be configured on the vBond controller. The Bootstrap server is responsible for distributing configuration information to the SD-WAN devices that are connecting for the first time. Add vEdge, vSmart devices. As SD-WAN devices like vEdge routers and vSmart controllers are deployed in your network, you'll need to add their serial numbers and other identifying information to the vBond controller's database. This helps the controller identify and authenticate the devices. Authenticate SD-WAN devices. The vBond controller authenticates the SD-WAN devices using certificates and other credentials. Ensure that the certificates and authentication keys are properly configured on both the vBond controller and the SD-WAN devices. Monitor and troubleshoot. Once the setup is complete, monitor the vBond controller's dashboard to ensure that all devices are successfully connecting and registering. In case of any issues, use the available troubleshooting tools and logs to diagnose and resolve problems. Scaling and high availability, optional. Depending on your network requirements, you might need to set up multiple vBond controllers for redundancy and load distribution. This involves configuring the vBond cluster and ensuring seamless failover in case of controller failures. Remember that the actual configuration steps might vary based on the version of Cisco SD-WAN software you are using and any specific network architecture considerations. Always refer to the official documentation provided by Cisco for detailed and up-to-date instructions on setting up the vBond controller.